have Mr. Larry Tucei here with us. He is the expert on trees on the coast. He's the go-to. He knows everything, and he can measure everything all along the coast, not just Biloxi, not just Mississippi, but he knows everything. And anybody who has a question about trees, this is the person to go to. And he just knows it by heart. You don't even have to look it up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, he has a pretty long bio, and basically I'm just going to mention a few things. He's been documenting trees, keeping track of trees for 20 years now. He began his Live Oaks project right after Katrina, and now it's called the Coastal Live Oak Project. He joined the Native Tree Society in 2006 with some arborists. He has a live oak listing that he's compiled with 340 oaks. It grew. Wow. Because you keep measuring.
People call me today.
More? So, anyway, so he has a lot of, a very long bio, and I'd like to put it up so that you can read all the wonderful things he's done. And we appreciate you taking your time, because if you weren't here, you'd be measuring trees, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jane. Thank you all for having me here. So I got into this when I was young. I liked trees, and can you hear me good? Am I talking?
Yeah.
So that's basically how I started. When I was little, Mom would have to come find us, and she'd go outside and look at trees, and we were 20, 30 foot up. You know how boys are. And then later on in life, when I started hunting, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Pascagoula management areas. Pascagoula Swamp, Pascagoula River is the only undammed river in North America. A lot of people don't realize that. There are 1,000-year-old cypress trees in there. They're about the size of 3/4 of this board here. I remember one in a place called Black Lake. It was tremendous. It was the same size on the ground. At 80 feet, it was the same size. So that tree was well over 1,000. It finally went down, and I think it was floating into a little lake, and somebody got it and timbered that tree. But anyway, so I started learning the species. Over time, I kind of educated myself back in the 80s. Then in the 90s, I moved farther inland, went to northern Mississippi, central Mississippi, a place called Bienville National Forest. So we have several national forests in our state. Been to all of them. I've documented a lot of forestry, not just, I specialize in live oaks, but I've documented every species in Mississippi. And then in 2006, I got with this premier tree group called the Native Tree Society. And they're the leading scientists and arborists in North America. That's kind of where I really got my knowledge from them. And I went to seminars, lectures, kind of self-taught and got self-educated by them. So, it was an honor. These guys, if you look them up, I could give you these names and you would be amazed when you read about them, because they're pretty famous people. But, so I started documenting trees basically in 2006 after Hurricane Katrina. I went around and I saw the devastation, and I thought, let's make some good out of this. So I started measuring live oak trees exclusively and posted on their website, the Native Tree Society. And they were like, wow, this is a big tree. I'm like, where's this at? And I told Gulfport, Mississippi was the first tree that I ever measured on 17th Street. And then the next one was Jackson Oak in Daphne, Alabama. And I kept sending these pictures in, and we kept collaborating. And the next thing I knew, they called me Live Oak Larry. And they did a project in 2004, the first live oak ever volume measured. Who all saw the movie The Patriot? That tree, when they're at the mansion and they blow up the British ship, that's the tree that they did in 2004. It's called the Middleton Oak. And at one time, they thought that was the largest live oak in North America. And over the years, they've learned that that's just one tree of hundreds. There's probably, I'm estimating maybe 500 to 1,000 live oak trees over 30 foot in diameter. Circumference, excuse me. See if I can turn this echo off of this thing. How does this echo get off of here? This is that, let's see here, hang on, bear with me. Echo, right here. Echo. Is that better? Is that any better? That's a little better. We don't, that's it.
We don't hear it.
What's that?
We don't hear your echo.
You didn't hear the echo a while ago?
No.
Oh, okay. Good.
Sound good.
So, that's basically how I got started. Right today, Bob Leverette's he's like my mentor. He's in Massachusetts. Me and him communicate weekly. We're doing volume measurements, volume documentation's never been done except that one Milton oak I was talking about. So a big live oak can have anywhere from 2,500 to 3,500 cubic feet of lumber. You have to, it's a difficult process. It takes me a day or two to measure every major limb, minor limb on the tree and then calculate the cubic footage. I send it to Bob. He made an Excel format for me where I can just plug in numbers. He's a mathematician, and then he'll run the numbers and he'll send me back how much carbon the tree will store. So carbon is important. The internet is inaccurate. Don't believe any of that stuff that you read about how to measure a tree is documented, but live oak is different. The basic way to measure a tree is 4 foot 6 inches off the ground. You know, who measures trees here? Anybody? Okay, well, anyway. So I was hoping a garden club would be here. So, but I've lectured to a garden club before, Ocean Springs. I'm doing another lecture. There'll be a lot of garden clubs there, and I'll explain how to measure a tree because it can be difficult. I have a $2,000 laser that, you know, everybody wants to help measure a tree, and I explained to them you have to have a laser that's capability. Vertical measurement, horizontal measurement, you know, and you can get a laser for 300 or 400, but not like what I got. So, and I got that through Bob, who I talked about a while ago in Massachusetts. We're cadre measurers are a group of people from all over that the American Forest. They hold the records, the national records of all tree species, the champion listing. So they need people to go out and verify and document these trees. So I was one, and there's about 20 of us that were nationwide. And let's say you had a big tree on your property that was a champion of a certain species, and they would ask, hey, we're going to nominate it as a state champion. So our state forester would come, he'd nominate it, they put it on the state listing. Then they would call us and say, hey, we think this is a national champion. We'd look at the records, and if it was close, we'd come down. One of us would come and verify the state guy. So it's a big deal. Documenting trees is accuracy is important, and it's preservation and make awareness. People, you know, all us, everybody, and I'm saying the young people. So the young people. They're who I try to talk to a lot and get them more interested because they're the future. We all appreciate nature and love trees, and a lot of them do too, but not they're different than we were when we grew up. You know, so I'm working on that, and I mean I'm on little kids like this big, and so I'll be going to schools, talking to them. We'll get a live oak tree and plant it, and then plant it at the school, and then and they'll watch it grow up like they'll grow up, so will the tree. So that's kind of some of the things that I'm involved with, and many other things, many projects. So I'll start this show here. Let's see. Basically, this is a slideshow. they're longleaf pine and live oak trees. I have samples up here. This is a live oak tree of that 3-foot diameter. A friend of mine cut it, and I said, let me have a cookie. This is called a cookie. I've sent several cookies bigger than this to scientists to get accurate ring counts, because people think they can count the rings of a tree, and that's how old it is. Totally inaccurate. We have false rings. Down south is the most difficult area to measure trees by ring count. You have to be an expert. I just sent a sample to Virginia Tech off of a tree that's 6 foot in diameter from Codin, Alabama, and they sent it back to me. They said, we can't extrapolate exactly how old this tree is. There's so many false rings on this tree sample, we can't do it. And that's a dendrochronologist sending me that back. So that tells you how difficult when you cut a tree and they go, well, that's 100 rings, that's 100 years old. No, it's not. It could be 50 years because of false rings. We don't have false rings in the north, only in the southern climate, because our winters are so mild, the trees keep, they don't know when to stop growing, when to go dormant. So that's one of the issues. I have sent a sample to a guy I knew in Kentucky, and then he went to Harvard University. I sent him a sample in Harvard, and it took him 6 months to get it back. It was a magnolia. I'm sure, how many of you heard of the great magnolia in Mississippi? Wow, y'all aren't up on trees much. It's okay. So this tree was the national champion. It's the largest magnolia in North America. It was right here in Greene County, George County line. It was 6 foot in diameter at this height, so this wide at this height. And it fell down, Zeta blowed it down. I've been to it since '92, and it was well documented. I think I was the only one to really measure it in the last 15 years, so that Forest Service, when it blew down, they found out that I documented, and they asked me the measurements. I gave them the measurements, and I said, I'd like a cookie off of that tree. And he said, well, let me see what I can do. They contacted me back. They don't usually give a cookie to an individual, the Forest Service. So they did, and it was 4 foot in diameter. This tree was 111 foot tall, and I had the sample where the tree, how a tree will grow up and then it splits? At 40 feet is where it split. And I had that sample. So they cut it for me, and I went and got it, and I cut it at work. I cut a little pie out of it, sent it to Harvard, and he aged it during COVID, so it took him like forever to do it, 6 months. He sent it back to me. It was 267 years old, so that's pretty significant. And unfortunately, it went down, but that's what trees do. They die, we die, you get a new champion tree, you get a new Larry. So that's just the way life is. So this just talks about how I said earlier, in the 1980s, I began exploring and hunting in the Pascagoula Basin, blah, blah, blah. Created the Live Oak Project in '06, began documenting all the live oaks that I could find with circumferences of 20 foot or greater. That's a big tree. 20 foot, that's almost 7 foot in diameter. So since that period, I went down. I keep going down. Everybody's like, man, can you do mine? I said, well, let me go down. So I went to 19 foot, but that's still a big tree. Now I'm at 18 foot. So to try to document more and more big trees, because a 6 foot diameter tree is pretty big, So in some of these cities down here, I'm even doing 15 foot. So I have listings in Ocean Springs, Pascagoula, Van Cleve, Gautier, Bay St. Louis, Dauphin Island, and all these different cities, Biloxi, all these different cities. I have sub-listings, but I have a national listing that you have to, it was 20 foot, then it went to 19, now it's 18. But that's the one that has 350 live oaks. So I probably have measured in my lifetime 20,000 trees. I'm just guessing. That's forest trees. I've been in western states, northern states, eastern states, and southern states doing this. So I know every species in North America through the scientists. When I didn't know anything, I would talk to them and they would teach me. I went to Vanderbilt's estate. How many have been there? we went in there with some scientists and we went behind the scenes. We measured all their trees that the public don't get to see. And that was spectacular. And I was with a guy named Robert Van Pelt. He has a photographic memory. He looks like, you remember, what was that, Grizzly Adams? He looks like Grizzly Adams with red hair. And every tree we walk by, he's naming the genus and species. He named, while I was with him, he named 100 trees, genus and species, just like that. This guy, like super genius, you know. Anyway, he liked me, and he would quiz me. He said, "Hey, what's that right there?" I said, "I saw that in a picture. That's an Atlas cedar." He said, "That's right." And then he tell me the genus and species. I can't do that. But anyway, yeah, so it was a privilege being with all those kind of people. So this is just, it's a brief history of naval stores in North America, first prior to Europeans, forestry practices, longleaf pine, live oaks, my projects, importance of trees, impacts on environment, economy, and natural balance. This just says, talking about pine trees, you know, longleaf pine were turpentine, and rosin was the most important, and the lumber, you know, that they use on these trees. Let's see here. At the time of the American Revolution, much of the southeastern coast of North America was covered with longleaf pine forests. The gum-like rosin of these trees was called crude turpentine, and they distilled it. Most of y'all know all that, you know, they used to take cat faces called, they would cut grooves in the pine. Y'all familiar with that? They would cut grooves in there and put a little cup and gather the rosin to create all this stuff. They made tons of different makeups, oils. You ever tarred and feathered? That's what you were tarred and feathered with. And you know, hey, I got a sample. Who wants to touch this pine cone? You guys. So this is like a bullet in a hurricane. Longleaf pines, in Hurricane Frederick, I watched these shoot like rockets all over Gautier. You know, Hurricane Frederick was 79, it was 140 mile an hour wind gusts. They raised it to a category 4. So we rode it out. Not to change the subject, but I've been through 3 eyes of hurricanes right there in this same house of Gautier. So anyway, rosin was used to reduce harshness of live soaks. Smeltering pine log made tar and pitch. It was used to protect the rope rigging, this is important, of sailing ships, greasing axles, making tar paper, hairdresser, tar and feather, undesirable individuals, and cologne. We need that today. We can use that a lot. Also used to cauterize bleeding and sterilize wounds and amputations. Rope soaked in pitch was driven between the planks of ships to make them watertight and to coat holes for protection from sea worms of tropical water. So that's a pretty important item that they keep forgetting. So here's the longleaf pine range. Virginia to Texas. And there was somewhere, it's been estimated, scientists estimate between 90 and 100 million acres of these vast forests. And they can live for 500 years. They're one of the strongest pines in the world. So all our ancestors' homes, all our great-grandparents' homes, all the timber under the bottom of those houses, those big beams, all longleaf pine. They also use longleaf pine on walls, ceilings, and they also use live oak as well, oak flooring, cypress. Those are the 3 main.
What's the difference between longleaf and heart pine?
Heart pine is, any pine that has heart pine is the center of the pine.
Okay.
Yeah. They call this, you hear all these slang words. This is Pinus palustris. So there's 6 species of pine in Mississippi. This is the premier pine right here. This is the one everybody wants. When you go in these old buildings, you see that beautiful red lumber. That's longleaf pine. Let's see what this, I can't read the top. This is going to talk about, what does this say? Copper skin ships. Okay, some accounts suggest that turpentine began in 1777 in Mobile County, but significant numbers of operations out of Rise in Alabama in the 1840s. After widespread adoption of copper stills invented in 1834, these apparatuses reduced the cost of production. They set up near the harvesting timber. Demand for turpentine, pitch, and rosin in 1840 stimulated production. The growing rubber industry employed turpentine as a solvent, expanding soap. It goes on and on. If you did some reading and research, you can find dozens of pages about this stuff. So I won't sit and read every bit of it. I'm just giving you naval stores are a forgotten legacy in the South, but throughout history, nations have depended on them. They set aside tracts of forest for shipbuilding down south, as well as in New England, the coastal Carolinas. All these places had naval stores because back then, you know, they were the warships. We have one here at Keesler Air Force Base. A lot of people don't even know that. But the ones I know about are Keesler Air Force Base and Santa Rosa Sound, Gulf Breeze area. That was another naval store for live oaks right there. This is the story of a remarkable but messy industry that helped support much of the South's economy for 400 years. I mean, that's significant. Then colonial North America, the Royal Navy relied heavily upon naval stores for American colonies. Naval stores were an essential part of the colonial economy. Mast came from large white pines in New England, while pitch came from longleaf pine in Carolinas. Of course, this is going, you know, you're in the 1700s. Shaped shingles and staves. Naval stores played a role in the American Revolutionary War. Britain attempted to cripple French in Spain through blockade. They declared naval stores contraband. You know, and it goes on. Even Russia got involved. Catherine the Great announced that they would be used against anyone interfering with neutral trade. Everybody was after this stuff. So, you know, America was a brand new country. Virgin timber. I mean, I don't know how many square miles is North America. I don't know, but that's a lot of timber. So they were all fighting for that to get here. The major producers of naval stores in the 19th and 20th century, the United States of America, France, Napoleon encouraged planting of pines in areas. In 1920, the United States exported 11 million gallons of spirits. France exported 20% of the world's rosin. The United States, the other 80%. Naval stores started in Georgia, 1875. Gun naval stores produced in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and South Carolina. As of 1960, Georgia and Florida produced 90% of the gum, with this naval stores following two main classifications. But I could go on, but I'm gonna move on. You get the idea. Here's what it would look like. This is really amazing to me. I still look for virgin longleaf. You don't find it. They're only in Mississippi. I've seen 150 and maybe 200-year-old trees, but they're not as big as you think. A longleaf pine. Okay, what is this? This is maybe like, what is it, 18 inches, 2 foot square? A tree like that can be 150 years old. They're amazing. 4 of these big squares, that's 500 years. So rings are unbelievable. They're like 32nd of an inch. So 10 years or more, 10 or 20 years, that tree, that's 20 years of a growth. So that's why they're so strong and it's just unbelievable. I wish I would have lived back then. I'm in the wrong century. And then this is what we did. So what happened, you know, I mean, I get it. They survived. They had to survive. You know, it wasn't like they were just cutting lumber to cut lumber. It was a tough time, but they got good at it. They did it in New England, and then they went to the Midwest, Chicago area, you know, Minnesota, Northern Illinois, Wisconsin. They got real good when they came down here. After the Civil War, they come down here. The carpetbaggers came and bought up vast tracts of land for nothing, and then they did this. I'll show you another slide in a second. Who knows what a dummy line is? So what it is they would go in a forest and cut a track down, cut a path down there and lay a railroad track, small gauge tracks. Then they would bring a machine down there and they cut everything in this region. And this machine, it was steam powered. They could send cables out in 4 directions, like a quarter mile out. And they would winch in everything they cut and load them on cars. And that was one process they did. They also had a Lindsay wagon, which is, let's see if I got one on here. This is one of those machines. It's pretty awesome. And that's some hard work. You can imagine doing that on a day like this in the middle of nowhere. I don't know, they were tough. I guess that's why we didn't live to be 50, you know. Back then. This is a Lindsay wagon. I know where 2 are. They were made right here in Benton in Mississippi. So it's amazing. You see the size of that tree? That's not a pine tree, but it'd be cool if it was. In California, the pines are that big, and a lot of firs are that big. But here, so this wagon could haul 10 tons, I think, or more, 20 tons. It's steel wheels, and you see what's pulling that? That's oxen. That's a lot of oxen. It was a really amazing. There's one in Laurel, right outside of Laurel. There's a little place called. It's a replicated community, and they got over $2 or $3 million worth of farm implements in there and equipment. It's not Scranton Village or something. Anyway, sorry.
Landrums?
Huh?
Is it Landrums?
Yes, Landrum. Thank you, man. That's it, Landrum. You got to go up there. If you've never been there, you need to go. Just go at Christmas time. They got a great Christmas event. It was awesome. So there's a Lindsay wagon. That's the only one I know other than Jackson Museum. Nobody knew what it was except me. You know, I said, hey, that's a Lindsay wagon.
If that's not a pine, what is it?
That's an oak.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. What's that say on that? It says, hauling logs in 07. Dear friend, somebody here this morning to cut the oak, this big oak. See, you can't always see it, but that's it right there, big oak. But if William Bartram was the first naturalist, the King of England sent him down to look at his timber, and he described, if you read his writing, if you ever want to read something good, read William Bartram's travels. He describes oak trees 10 foot in diameter with paces. He stepped off 50 paces or more in one direction from the center of the tree. The magnolias were like that. The pine trees were 6 foot in diameter, 5 foot, you know, so I wish I could see virgin timber. You know, you can see some, but not like they did. Here we go, Purvis, Mississippi, same thing. You see how they had a team of people, Sawyer, the main boss, the trail boss, the cutters. I mean, that's some brutal work. I wouldn't have done it. Stone County. This, I guarantee you, I know where this is. Who's familiar with Stone County? Highway 26 is that high ridge that goes right through Stone County. You see that ridge right there? It's similar. This would be, if you went north or up this direction, that would be similar to Highway 26. South of 26, it looks just like this. Of course, the trees aren't that big. I went all in there over the years, all these forests, looking at stuff. That's a pretty big fella there, and that's to give you an idea how big a longleaf can be. That's probably a 500-year-old tree. This is in Texas. Southeast Texas has a lot of big trees too. And then here's an example of him with the turpentine, cutting the cat face, and then they would hang the little. They started with ceramic cups first. This is later on. Then they went to metal. They had straps on there. I have one of those in my living room that I got out of the forest. This year, a friend of mine called me and he said, I want you to come see my property. And I said, hey, that branch, is that in your property? He says, yeah. I said, there's going to be some cool stuff in there. Let me walk through there. And I found 4 of these things because they'll sit there for 100 years. It's rotten. And it was about this tall, and we cut it with a chainsaw. It's in my living room, and I sprayed it. Good thing I killed a black widow. So, oh no, there was all kind of black widows in that thing, and we carried it out of the woods like that. You know, goofy. So you see all that's a lot of rosin in those barrels. And Captain Jones would have shipped a lot of that right out of Gulfport. All of this stuff was being shipped out of Gulfport and Pascagoula and Mobile. This is Knoll Park. That's a longleaf pine in Daphne, Alabama. There's a little park there. That tree is 100 and over 150. This is just illustrating the same thing I got right here. You don't see these no more. That's a longleaf pine. That's how you tell the difference. You know, that's one way. The needles can be 18 inches long. The cones are the size of a football. So I got examples of longleaf pine, slash pine. Slash pine's a little bit different, a little smaller. Slash pine needles, they can be about 8 inches long. Loblolly, a little smaller, 5 or 6 inches long. Shortleaf pine. Then let's see, in the pines. Okay. This is called the grass stage. So one of the reasons the Forest Service didn't want to plant these trees, it takes 7 years. This tree will grow the grass stage. It won't be this tall. It'll be like this tall. It'll be on the ground like this, and then it'll sprout up like this and grow a taproot for 7 years. Then it'll take off and grow. So that they don't want a tree like that. They want money, so they want a tree that grows fast. So now they made a mistake, and they realized that after Hurricane Katrina destroyed millions of these trees. Guess what they plant now? Those trees right there. So they learned something. Okay, so now we're switching to live oaks. Almost the same the same range, except you notice they're not as far inland. But now, man, it's got a point on it, isn't it? Hey.
First class. You sit right there.
Look at that. So right here is about the range we just looked at, the pines. So live oak is normally like in that range. But now, man, you know, you guys have got them all the way up here. I was thinking as far as up in here. But guess what? 10 degrees that's their normal temperature zone is 10 degrees. They can take it below that, but they don't do well. So that's why they're hugging the coastline like this. You know, everything's got its So here we go, talk about William Bartram. It's the trunk of the southern live oak is generally from 12 to 18 feet in girth. Okay, that's pretty big, and rises 10 or 11 feet erect from the earth. Some I'm seeing 18 or 20. Okay, that's 20 feet. He's saying that's the first split of the trunk. So we don't see trees like that no more. So that would have been the virgin live oaks. You know, I would have loved to see that. Let's see. Continue to grow in a nearly horizontal direction, each limb forming a gentle curve or arc from its base to extremity. Each step above 50 paces on a straight line from the trunk of one of these trees to the extremity of the limb. Evergreen, and the wood is incorruptible, and it bears a prodigious quantity of fruit. Acorn is small but sweet and agreeable to the taste. You know, the Indians used to eat that. They'd make a bread with them. A lot of the acorns are edible. The hickories, you know, all our pecan trees, Carya illinoisensis is pecan. All pecans are hickories, man-made hickories. They took wild hickories, and created pecan trees. All the pecans that we eat are from wild hickories. Let's see. Sweet and agreeable to the taste when roasted, and is food for almost all animals. The Indians obtained from a sweet oil they used in the cooking of hominy, rice, and etc. And they also roast them in hot embers, eating them as we do chestnuts. That's pretty cool. You know, we forgot all this stuff. So I'm like going back and thinking, hey, I need to go to the doctor. Well, what's wrong with me? Whatever. Well, I'll just take this pill. I'll take this pill, take this tree bark, or take this tree leaf. You know, because that's what our grand ancestors did, and that works. Don't take all that medicine. I'm only on a little blood pressure. I'll probably get off of that, but I'm so hyper. You know, that's all I take. I'll be 70, so I'm pretty hyper for 70. I can. Genetics, I guess it's the Tucei Italian blood. So 6 species of live oaks in North America. Most people don't realize that. Southern live oak, sand live oak, dwarf live oak, Texas live oak, and coast live oak, California. They can all cross-pollinate. Anybody that plants trees don't like me when I say this. They're planting the wrong species. These people go to these nurseries and they buy this so-called live oak. That is not what they're buying. They're buying a man-made tree that is not a live oak. If that leaf isn't that long and that wide, it is not a southern live oak. It is a hybrid of some type. I brought some examples to show you. This is off a 200-year-old tree, and they can be way bigger than this. This is from Louisiana. But you see how, you guys all know what they look like. White oak? What about it? Oh yeah, white oak. So if you got land, that's the tree you want to plant right now. That's the most valuable timber tree in North America, white oak. Well, that's a swamp chestnut white, but that's in the white oak grouping, because you got 10 white oaks, 10 red oaks, 10 hickories, 10 magnolias. So that's a swamp chestnut you're describing. White oak is a little smaller, but that's what they make whiskey barrels out of. That's the most sought-after lumber right now. I just talked to some guys in North Mississippi. If I had a bunch of land, I'd be planting black walnut and white oak trees. Because those are the 2 most valuable trees in North America.
Is it because it's the hardest?
Sorry?
Is it because it's the hardest or most dense?
It's water resistant. The white oak is what they use to make whiskey barrels, and they burn it. That's how, whiskey with moonshine is just burned barrels, and it ages it and turns it, red. But they can live for 800 years. The white oak is awesome tree. They're big. New England has their range is all the way from New England down to here, and they don't do well in Texas, but they kind of end in Texas. What's next here? So old Ironsides. So this is the Constitution, USS Constitution. I saw this ship when I was in Connecticut, Mystic, Connecticut. There's a shipyard there that they replicate the timbers for these, and so happened, I work for the National Guard. I'm an aviation welder, aerospace. So my passion was trees. You can't make no money with trees, so I had to go work for the military. For 30 years, I welded on aircraft, every aircraft and every inventory. If it was something needed, I could do it. So stainless steel, titanium, aluminum, steel, cast iron. I learned that back in the day. And while I was doing trees, that's when I was making money, but I was studying trees at the same time. So I saw this ship, and Katrina was cool. Let me read this first. You guys have probably heard this story. The practice of using live oak shipbuilding was well established in 1700. Early famous live oak vessels including the Hancock, USS Constitution, built in Boston, 1797, as part of the U.S. fleet involved in the War of 1812. It proved the strength of the live oak hull. On August 19, 1812, 750 miles off the coast of Massachusetts, the Constitution was in a heated battle with the British frigate Guerriere, I guess that's right, not French. Barely 50 yards apart, each fired its 22 cannon point blank into its opponent. The barrage from the British frigate seemed to be having little effect. However, its cannonballs bounced off the Constitution rugged oak side, giving it the famous nickname Old Ironside. That's pretty. We learned that in high school. So shipwrights would, you see the tree, and you see the little rulers that they had. They would go out, they'd send them out in the forest, and they would need a curved limb, a curved trunk to make the ribs of the ship. That's what this is illustrating. Here's the USS Constitution in 1875 when they were working on it. And when I was I worked for ABCRAT, it's called the Army National Guard. We have 4 in the United States. One of our sister facilities in Groton, Connecticut. That's how I went up there. When I went up there to Mystic, they had a lumber that Katrina, you probably heard or read this on TV. They had a pile of lumber about the size of this ceiling, all live oak and long lead pine from Mississippi. And they were redoing that ship right there and other ships like it at that little shipyard. Really I got lucky to see that. Let's see, then it starts talking about the future supply of live oak and reserve thousands of acres of southern woodlands. And then John Quincy Adams authorized the establishment of the first and only federal tree farm, what is now Goat Breeze. I talked about that earlier. In 1829, Superintendent Henry Brackenridge experimented with cultivating live oak trees, perhaps our first federal forester. With the development of the ironclad warship in the mid-19th century, the live oak tree was no longer important, so that it was had a critical place in our history, but it was long gone for the steel. So, and it makes you wonder how much what did they do to the live oak trees? You read what it said. They altered stuff. So man's good about altering everything. This is talking about the carbon footprint. So who's been on the internet reading the carbon footprint of a tree is 48 pounds a year. Way inaccurate. Yeah, a little bitty tree like this is 48 pounds, but what about a tree like this, or what about one like this? So me and Bob, we're rewriting the internet. He's on 3 different AI. This guy's a genius. Me and him are communicating with AI. GPT chat and Gemini, and we're like communicating with them, trying to get them to communicate back, and it's kind of scary. They don't recognize us both together, but they know him and me, and he'll say, he'll do stuff like, hey Gemini, how about a cup of coffee with some sugar? And he'll come back and say, well, Bob, I appreciate that, but sugar's not good for me, and I don't need to be, I don't need all that sweetness and stuff. And so then he'll throw a question about carbon to it, and then it'll come back with he'll throw numbers at it, and it'll come back with a scientific answer, and then he'll agree with Bob on what he's saying, and that's where we're getting all this. You see here, the internet standard, let's see, where we go? Go back up. Okay. I've been working on this as me and Bob, simplifying tree carbon data with a colleague in Massachusetts, Robert Leverett, to debunk the 48-pound myth, internet myth. Everybody that you talk to, a tree, you'll see it, a tree pulls in 48 pounds of carbon a year. A little bitty tree, a giant tree, pulls in 1,000 pounds. So he's mathematically, I gave him some numbers, and he's mathematically calculating all this because he's a mathematician. So it's kind of nice to have somebody like him on my side, because I can do geometry, algebra, but I can't do calculus like him. He could measure my body and tell me the cubic inches of my skin. I can't do that kind of math. Anybody here do that kind of math? That's what he can do. So he's a very, very knowledgeable guy. He's created the old growth movement in New England back in the 80s. He's called the Old Growth Guru. He's written several books. I'm about to go visit him. Okay, here's the trees. This is the largest tree in your city, right here. The Wallace Oak. That tree is right on Hopkins, and unfortunately, my bad. They cut that limb off right there. This is me in 2022, and this is me. Look, I got black hair. Wow. This is 2006 or 7. And you notice their home, it's gone. You see all the bricks and blocks? So this home is totally destroyed. Right now, the city, your city, it's okay. They let them build a house right here. And there's a fence right here up against this tree. I'm like, you know, if I had the money, I'd have bought that Mount Level building. But this tree is massive. This is 29 foot, 11 inches circumference. So that's measured right there. You see where that I'm pointing? So normally you see where my chest is. That's where your standard measurement is. American standard is 4 foot 6 inches off the ground. Live oak is different. So you note that in your measurement, your documentation, and you measure it down here where the circumference of the trunk is. You're out of the root collar and you're out of the limb spread, so you get an accurate measurement. This tree is probably 2 centuries old, going into the 3rd century. It's on the original listing, Dr. Stevens, the Louisiana Live Oak Society, that is on the original listing of 35 trees created in 1934. I have a photograph of that tree in 1934. Guess what? It's half that size. So it's not, that tree had been that big 100 years ago. Who knows about the Ruskin oak in Ocean Springs? There's a big tree over there called the Ruskin. I have the same photograph. I have a tree, a photo in 1934, and I did it in 2022. That tree is 25 feet, 10 inches in circumference. Back then, it was like 17 foot circumference. So they don't stop growing. They keep growing, but they don't grow as fast as, they're not as old as people think. Okay. Aha, there's that, look, find that picture. Yeah, there I am. That little dude right there. So this tree is about 140 foot this way. It's about 60 something foot this way. And I want to do a volume measurement on this tree. So this would take a while. You imagine measuring every one of these limbs. Yes, ma'am.
So what type of carbon footprint would a tree like that have to you? Do you have an idea?
This is one of those 1,000 pounds of carbon trees. This is a 1,000 pounder. Oh, this is another big tree. This is another big tree in your city. The Coliseum oak is what I named it. I don't know the name of some of these trees. So if you measure a tree, you have the right to name it. So unless I find it, whoever had that property in 1860 probably planted that tree there. Well, they took great care in taking care of that tree. And it's not as big as the Wallace oak, but this side don't look as big. But the tree is never round either. This is on Oak Street. No, not is that Oak Street? Right across the track where that magnolia tree is. Isn't that Oak Street? That your big magnolia?
Yeah, that's.
This is across the street, that little business.
Oh, okay.
That's a pretty big tree too.
That's Porter Avenue.
Porter, that's what I'm thinking, man. That's right. That's Porter Avenue. And somebody called me, hey Larry, you measured that tree on Porter? I said, no, I know where it is. Let me go measure it. That was a few years back. Everybody knows this tree. It's right here. This tree is right there. If you don't know that, if you don't know this tree, I'm going to get on to you. Bellman Avenue, where we're at, that tree is right there. But this is, you see this structure here? That's gone.
Yes.
Terrible what they did, in my mind. They could have not built that there. I don't know who decided that, but the Ringneck oak is right. You see that tree right there?
That's it.
Right now, I don't think that's the Ringneck oak.
Okay.
It's right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, they got a gas loop right there by the tree. I'm like, really? You can't move it down that way a little bit? Back to the chastisement, but they know me. When you guys call, I go to the city hall, I'm facing, it's like you're on trial. We went to city hall, and you sit down there like, oh, you're a criminal, and they're all in these big chairs, and happy. They don't like it when I go in there, because I tell them, hey, you just murdered this tree. You just killed 10,000 insects, reptiles, and mammals that were supported by that tree for a Dollar General store? How stupid is that? I mean, that's kind of how I talk to them, but they know me. Look, black hair again. And I had hair. Wow, that's awesome. This is right there by the O'Keeffe Museum. This is on the northeast corner. In fact, I just went and looked at that tree. It looks the same. It hasn't changed much. It's a little bigger, but you see right there, that thing had a chunk hit that tree long ago. Camille did this. But so live oaks, I always thought they're the most beautiful tree in the South to me. I love trees, but live oak is my favorite. Our grandparents were married under this tree. They had picnics under these trees. They built houses by these trees. We must protect as many of these trees as we can. Once they're gone, we'll never see it. Our children won't see it in their lifetime like these trees, because it takes 100 to 200 years to get to that point. So I try to help preserve as much as I can. My goal is to, I have a 501 now, and I'm working on getting some grants, and I'm going to plant 1,000 trees if I can. But I'm growing them on my own. I'm not going to rely on, these nurseries, because I have a geneticist that we're about to genome some trees and preserve the DNA of the greatest trees on the coast. And he's pretty cool. I've learned a lot of stuff from him lately. That's just another one of my projects.
Were the trees originally planted, or did they come up naturally?
Both. Because Indians probably planted some too. The squirrels planted. I bet you 90% of these trees are squirrels. Squirrels, they love to dig. Yes, sir.
What are those beautiful trees in front of Hard Rock down there?
Those trees at Hard Rock?
Yeah, the one that look like they all came from the same batch of seeds. They look beautiful.
So they
Hard Rock, Boulder Box.
Voter Vise requested people like you, if you had a tree in your yard, they'd pay you $50,000 to go get it and bring it and plant it.
Oh, that's how they did it.
That's how they all got here. And they were stupid at first. They put magnolias inside the thing. They killed 20 beautiful magnolias. And I had a magnolia on some property. I said, hey, I can make $20,000. I said, no, I'm not selling no tree for $20,000. They killed every one of them. They had them in the atrium. Stupidest thing ever. I said, really? This is Oak Alley. This is my favorite plantation. These trees are 250 years old, pushing 300. The biggest one is the Andrews was Josephine Stewart. You can't see her. She's right over in here. She's like right here. 30-foot circumference, 10-foot diameter. I grew 8 of these trees. I gave one to Ocean Springs is getting one, Gulfport's getting one, Biloxi's getting one. If they don't behave, they're not getting one. I'll give them to another city. But they're cool. These trees are 15. Let's see, how old they are. They're 11 years old now. Let's see. Yeah, they're 11 years old. They're still in pots. They grew through the pot and in the ground now. They're as tall as my house and about this big around. And I have to dig them out. Me and the mayor of Long Beach, I don't know if any of y'all saw me on TV, me and him, I had him in the hole, and I had the alderman in the hole. I said, let's go. Get in here and earn your money. So we planted a tree on Earth Day in Long Beach. Tim Pierce, really cool. Long Beach is trying to be a better steward of trees. After that Jeff Davis incident where they cut a big tree for no reason.
That hotel.
Yeah, stupid. I went there. I was at the city hall with that. I've been to city hall in Biloxi, Ocean Springs, different cities. They call me, when they have a problem. They know I'll come. And you saw that thing with the National Cemetery.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It was you guys did it. All I did was put it on Facebook, and you guys flooded. Mike Ezel was overwhelmed with phone calls, and he called back down here. I know what happened. I read between the lines. He said, what the hell is going on down there in Biloxi? Next thing we know, that all got shut down. But it was a positive. I made it positive. I'm not going to be negative, So. But you guys, without the people, I'm nothing. Here it is. This is the Josephine Stewart. I have this tree growing. She's my favorite tree. It's a perfect tree. It's like a giant mushroom. It's 150 foot one way and 130 something one way, 83 feet tall, 2911 circumference. One of them. one of 28 like that.
Where is it?
This is Oak Alley, Vacherie, Louisiana. So I went down in Louisiana in the years and documented 12 of their plantations, all their live oak trees. That's another reason I know how big and old trees are. You go to Louisiana, they have 100 times the trees we have. Easily, maybe more than that. Big trees. You go to this mansion. This mansion was built in 1812. Guess what? They planted these 3 trees here in 1812. Guess how big they are? 10 foot in diameter. They're huge. And that's 200 years, you know. So that's another way I can say these trees aren't 5, 6, 900 years. You know, this tree's 900. I'm like, it's a cypress tree? 900. Yeah, not a live. And then here I am doing a volume measurement. This little reticle I got here. So I'll measure this limb right here, and I'll measure it here, and then here, and write that down. Then I'll start back there and get that number again, and then here, and write that down. And then you get it. And then that limb, that one, all these limbs, and then this here, and then here, and here, and here, and here. All that's my buddy comes into play then. Takes a while. And that's it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Larry, would you mind kind of elaborating on the lion tail and how we should prune our live oaks?
Yeah, let me see. I don't have a picture of that, but I can go on Facebook. So what a lion tail is, let's go back to this image here. Let's see. We'll go back to this image here where we have a good shallow. Right. Okay. So lion tailing, which is the worst possible thing you can do to a live oak tree, is going in here and removing like these limbs here, here, and here, and then so it opens it like, see this void here? You'd have voids all here, and all, and so it opens up the tree for damage, from storm damage. Plus the leaves are the most important thing. If you get rid of all these leaves, without the leaves, the tree, they don't do well. So it's stupid. And I don't know who started it, but I'm like telling them, hey, don't do that. So I think that post, that's going to help a lot. People, thousands of people saw that, and they go, and they've already been screaming about it to stop the practice of that throughout these coastal cities. But I think that kind of hit the nail on the head.
I never heard of it. I mean, I always thought that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, no, you don't want to. All you really want to do is like trim a tree. You know, you want to prune a tree.
Like power companies come through.
Yeah, the power company comes and
Power companies.
Oh, they're evil.
Well,
That's one. They're evil.
everything should have went underground. After Katrina, we had an ample opportunity to put this stuff underground, but that's getting into their profit, and they don't want to do that. They don't want you to have 3-phase power. We should all be on 3-phase power, not single-phase power. It's way more efficient, but they don't want you to know that. I know that from when, in the military, I know power. I wired up stuff in that hangar, and our business, is way more efficient,
Are there any diseases that are affected?
Sir?
Are there any diseases?
There is oak wilt, there's several funguses, but they're not prevalent. Usually, they're like us. If you're fairly healthy, you're not going to get them. But as we get old and we get our bodies, just like a tree, they get disease, we get disease, we die, they die.
What would make the bark fall off?
Yeah.
That's part of that oak wilt, but there's other different factors too. Lichen, droughts, trees get stressed from droughts. Like right now, trees are stressing a little bit.
Boy,
But you got to remember one thing. They've been here for 200 years, This isn't the first time. The media, oh, God, it's 100. Guess what? It was 100 last year. When I was 20, it was 100. When I was 10, it was 100. And when I was 10, it was 20 degrees. It was 5 degrees. Now it's freezing cold. It's winter. It's summer. Don't listen to all that. The global warming there is a global warming. Overall, the earth is changing but that could be here or there. It's not like, if the Industrial Revolution sped it up, one volcano will do more than the whole atmosphere, than all the industry in the world combined in one eruption. They don't tell you that kind of stuff.
Have you measured the tree behind the old brick house?
I have, that's a young tree.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah, that's a 100-year-old tree.
Why is it the limbs like on the ground almost?
Somebody trimmed that tree. They kept pruning that tree, you know, making it wide. And it's an open grown. A tree will grow like this, reaching for the sun in the forest, and open grown will grow like this. There wasn't nothing around that tree, so it grew like that.
So have you measured the friendship oak in Long Beach?
The friendship oak, I got a bad taste in my mouth. On that tree is not 500 years. That's 3 trees fused together, and they don't want to admit it. That sign needs to come down. That is so inaccurate. It's a beautiful tree. I love the tree. It's done lost 2 giant limbs that don't look the same no more.
Have you
Yes,
ever been?
ma'am.
Okay, after Camille, there was a program, and I don't know who put it on, but they took seedlings, or took together with seedlings from the acres, from the Friendship Oak, and you could go get them. And I went and got some for our house where we live. We don't live there anymore. We only had one to really survive, but I had a lot of kids playing in my yard.
That's cool. This lady, I forget her name, she got 5 of them on her property, and I'm going to go measure them from the same time period, and they're big now.
Yeah.
How long ago, what year was that?
It was after Camille.
Yeah, 69.
It was in 70 something.
So like 71 or 2. So that's a long time ago. You know how big a live oak can be in that period? 4 foot in diameter. Just that period. Yes, ma'am.
Have you mentioned the Broussard, maybe it's called the Heightsman Broussard oak at the corner of Oklahoma and Lafayette? There's a huge one there.
I don't think so. I'll have to get that address.
Yeah.
Check it out.
How about Mahoney's
Trey,
tree?
what about the patriarch?
Yeah.
The patriarch, that me and Bob Mahoney talked about that, we laughed about it. That tree is not, take that 1 0 off of that, and it might be that.
200 years.
It's just a great story. What you don't see is that tree in his cellar,
Oh, the sun.
there's a root that grows up close to it. Did y'all see that on
I've been
Facebook?
down there.
Did you saw
I've
it?
been in
That
the
cellar,
cellar.
that root goes through that cellar, it's really cool.
Yes.
And it pulls the bricks up.
He had somebody, he said to go down and clean the cellar one time, and he wanted to straighten the bottles and stuff.
Yeah.
The guy started chopping on it,
Oh,
and
he-
when Bobby found
Fire,
out,
yeah.
he, just.
That Bob Mahoney, he knows more jokes than I know trees. He's a car.
Have you ever been to Hartford Pines up in Michigan?
No, man, but I've been right close to Michigan. I want to go to UP.
Okay, well, Hartford Pines was an old logging camp, it's had some huge, there was, my family, we could not get our.
So cathedral pines in Wisconsin are virgin pines. There's one tract left in Wisconsin other than the Indian places. Yeah, they're 300-year-old white pine and hemlock. And what's that, red pine too.
Where would you buy the white oak you were talking about?
You can't. You're not gonna buy no white oak like that. We can grow them. I can get some acorn and I'll get them out and we can grow them.
Oh, you have to get the acorn.
You gotta go in the forest. You know? So who knows where Notch National Refuge is? So that's 47,000 acres. I've been on every square foot and documented more trees there than anybody in our state. There's some beautiful trees up there.
Have you ever been to Natchez?
I have been in Natchez, but there's some beautiful trees there too.
Yeah.
I'm running out of life. I can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm trying. You know?
All right, we're going to wind down, guys. Miss Jane's got a presentation for Mr. Larry.
Thank y'all for having me.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tucei. We appreciate you coming. I know you'd rather be measuring trees, and it's a beautiful day, so we appreciate you being here. Words of wisdom. Never can have enough words of wisdom for you. This is a little lagniappe for us to take home and share and all this good stuff. And then, thank you. And then I want you to pick a number out of here. This is for the dog box.
Take a pick of a number.
Any number, just go. We don't know.
You'll let me pick the number. 19.
Who's got 19?
Lucky you know.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to look at these samples.
I don't have